I'm trying to become a platinum producer. Only one small problem though. Well, there's actually two. The first one, no one knows who I am. The second and the most important one is I just started about a year ago. In order to get better, I've tried several things, one being referencing Gunna songs, which leads to this one question. Is this beat good enough for Gunna to get on? Alright, so in this video, I'm going to go over this ambient Gunna style beat that I made, and then we'll eventually get the answer to if Gunna himself could actually hop on this. I will also go into how I chose the 3 different bass layers that you'll hear in the sample and in the beat, and how to actually mix those in to where it sounds pretty good and decent, right? And hopefully you can steal those tips I give on mixing those different bass layers, including the 808 with a kick, right? But before we get into the video, I do gotta let y'all know I will be keeping my own score. So based on the actual drums, the sample, the mix, the actual overall production, I will be giving my own personal verdict on if Gunna himself can actually get on this beat. All right, so stay tuned. Let's get into it. All right, let's start with the chorus and hook section. The perk loop plus how the drums are arranged and how the perk loop is actually chopped does all the work right here. Okay, so at this point, I wanted a good groove to match how I actually played the bass guitar. And that's why the perk chops are the way they are, because they play in space, which adds bounce, it adds rhythm, right? So if I play it real quick. Right, so you can kind of get a good idea of like, all right, I know how I'm gonna layer these drums from the way those two are playing off each other, right? All right, so now if I isolate the drums, you can get a better sense of what I did with the pattern in relation to how everything else was playing, right? You can see here that I layered the snare right here. I layered the snare with a hat, and then there's also a hat hit at the end of the 4-bar pattern, right? So let me just play the drums real quick. Just that simple pattern right there in combination with everything does all the work for you, right? So if I was to turn everything off but the perks themselves and you listen to it, you should still get some type of groove. You should still get some type of bounce. So let me go ahead and turn off where are the drums. So I turn all that off, right? And you just hear how the perks are playing and how the hi-hat is playing with it. All the drum elements besides the kick is working in tandem. That's essentially the pattern for the rest of the beat with some slight variations, but we'll get into that in a second, man. Okay, so next let's talk about the verse. It has the same patterns, but with less energy. So all you had to do is just take out some perk elements. It's really that simple. So far, I would say, this is heading in the right direction. I mean, it's all right. It's cool. I would give it a pretty good rating so far, but let's see what happens on the switch up. Okay, so let's get into my favorite part of the beat, which is the switch up. Now, the stuff before was cool. It's all right, but the switch up is where it's at for me. So let's go ahead and get into it. So when you think about, like I said, the arrangement of, where's that, pattern 12? When you think about the difference in the arrangement of the actual sample itself in combination with the 808 sound selection, like what I chose to be the 808, and the placement, the additional layers of perks, it just changed the whole vibe up, bro. It's just night and day. So like if I play just a pattern, like it's different. To me, we could get rid of the first half and just have this half, and it's something. You can do something with that. So I actually like that part the most because of that. It needed that switch up. I ain't gonna lie. I ain't gonna hold you. I was kind of selling the bag until I got to this point. That delayed hit, where's it at? On the 808, this delayed hit. See how it's not hitting on the one? I can't explain to you how it just go crazy, like how it's hard with the combination of the bass elements. So like if I go back to the song and play boom, just these right here. Yeah, that's tough. I don't know what possessed me to even just have it hit right here, but I like it, so it's in there. Okay, so for the drums, just the drums by himself, I give this a 4 out of 5, bro. I think I cooked on the drums. I ain't gonna lie. I'm rarely confident in my drums, but I think I did go crazy on the drums, especially on the switch up, especially on that. But for the production though, to be honest, it sounds good, but like if I had to nitpick, I don't like some of the sounds that I used and how I arranged the sounds. Like, I think I used a a a voice kind of like sound or whatever to be like the counter melody. I don't like that. I take that out. Um, yeah, there's a couple of things like kind of like how I led into the from like the chorus into the hook in the first half, and then how it dropped into the verse. I don't really like it. I think the drop into the verse wasn't too bad, but like the chorus part into the what would be considered the hook, I didn't really like how I did that from a production standpoint. So if I had to give that a rating, me personally, I'm giving that like a 3 out of 5, maybe closer to a 2.5 out of 5. I ain't gonna cap. I think the production of this could have been way better. So the next thing we're gonna talk about is how the heck did I mix all of this, right? We got all these different elements going on in the sample. We got the 3 different layers of basses playing. The added, you know what I'm saying? The added 808 count as a layer. We got extra perk elements going on. So how is this all mixed, especially for the hook section, right? So what I did wasn't really complicated. In fact, it's probably a better way of doing it, but this is essentially what I went with. So my solution was very simple. You just use EQ, compression, and just your standard leveling, and you pretty much good to go. Now, if I had to give myself my own little rating, like I said I would do on the mix, I give this like a 3 out of 5. I think there's some elements that I could have probably leveled a little bit better and turned down. The kick definitely should be turned down more. The snare too, maybe a little bit. And I think I boosted everything with the soft clipper a little bit too much too, or I did it incorrectly. So that's my take. But anyway, let me go ahead and show y'all what I did. So as far as leveling goes, it's really this simple. Bass guitar up front because it has the most groove and it complements the chorus the best in my opinion. Then you add the synth bass, which is over here when I actually played it in. You add that in because it adds texture. And I just like the way it added more rhythm to it as well. So I had that play next in terms of leveling. Then finally, the 808. The 808 just added more punch and more drive and more emphasis on the bass notes as I wanted them to be emphasized. And I feel like that just, it did everything for the switch up in my opinion. So I had to have that leveled as well. I actually think I had the 808 leveled slightly higher than the synth texture one right here, this one. I think that's a little bit ducked under because usually I do have texture a little bit, you know what I'm saying, leveled down. So that's what I did for the leveling. So as far as the mix goes, for the 808 itself, nothing on it. You see some side chaining going on though. We're gonna talk about that. We're gonna get into that. The bass guitar, limiter on there, compression. So when the 808 comes in, right? When the 808 comes in, I'm ducking the bass guitar slightly, just so the punch can get through the mix, the 808 can get through. right? Next, for the actual synth bass, where's it at? Simple EQ, we don't need the high end from it. Need a little bit of it, but not that much. So take some of that out. On the bass bus though, this is really where the magic happens at, right? Duck some high end and some more EQ to bring the mids out. You know what I'm saying? Make the bass more present. And some more fruity limiter. This is essentially for the kick. It's literally for the kick. Here's the kick. Side chain over here, so it ducks all the basses so that way the kick can breathe and punch through the mix. That's what I was doing back when I made this beat, which was in July or August. I can't remember. It's one of those. So, do I do the same thing now? I use less limiters. I will say I use less limiters, but that's what I did for this beat, and I think it achieved what it needed to achieve. This beat knocking. I ain't gonna lie to you. It's definitely knocking. So, again, from a mix standpoint, I still give myself like a 3 out of 5. For what? It could have been mixed better, for sure. It definitely could have been mixed better. Now, I ain't gonna hold you though. When it comes to compression, I kind of have a general idea how you supposed to use compression, but like the settings is iffy. I just trust my gut with it and use my ears, bro. If it sounds good to me, it works. I don't know what else to tell you on that front. I get that you're supposed to kind of like make sure that the presence of the bass note, like the sustain of the bass note, shouldn't be ducked too much. So you kind of want to have a shorter release. I think that's usually how that goes. I don't know what I'm doing, bro. I'm just making music. I'll keep it a buck. But to go into the melody bus real quick, it's a pretty strong duck on the actual low end of that. It's a lot of space for all those basses to play, and I think that's the only reason why those layers work, is because I don't have too much of the melody, or the sample I should say, bleeding into where the bass and the kick and all that is present. That's pretty much it though. There's a limiter on here. I know for a fact I don't even do this. I just did regular compression with it. Fruity limiter, bruh. But I don't know, bruh. Fruity limiter. Anyway, I did duck some of the mid range too, but other than that, man, the melody bus is pretty straightforward. You can see most of the EQ is done right here. This is just tape. You know what I'm saying? Little color wheel. I was in love with tape around this time. I'm still kind of in love with the tape saturation. But do that on there. And that's pretty much it for the mix. The master, and this is where it was a big no-no for me. That master boosted, bro. Look at that post. Hood all the way up, 100%. Threshold turned down a little bit. Nothing really wrong with that, but you gotta be good at leveling, because if not, you gonna introduce the wrong type of redlining. And when you boost the high end like this, when you boost that mud, it's gonna make everything sound louder. So I gotta be careful of that in the future. But like I said, the mix is the mix. I think I could have did better. Okay, so through challenging myself, I found new ideas and found different things I want to try in the future when it comes to mixing, when it comes to drum arranging, and just general sound selection and actually producing with intention. I felt like I've grown a lot from trying to do this, because I usually just go into FL and make whatever, but I had a frame of mind of, okay, this is trying to go to Gunna, this is trying to reinvent the sound a little bit and push the boundary on what he could potentially hop on. So I had that reference in mind, I had that framework in mind, and I tried to go for something crazy. I tried to go for something that's unique to my sound, my taste, and that's great. So all in all, I feel like finding inspiration isn't really the hard part. Just actually staying course and acting on that inspiration and kind of like reeling in that creativity within the funnel of what you're going for is the hard part. That almost broke me trying to make this. I remember it took me, at the current time. It took me like 2 days. I think it took me 2 days or a full day to make it. It was something. It was something crazy that probably didn't need to take all that, but at the time, that's what it was. That was my current skill level. That was what I was capable of doing, was making this, and it took however long it needed to take for that. So, it's cool. It's cool, but the main thing is to not be so vague and just be talking around it. The hard part is really just referencing tracks, period, bro. Like, especially when you just starting out, you don't know what the hell you're hearing, bro. You don't know what you're hearing. You don't know the intricate details you need to know in order to actually structure it the way you need to structure it. And you don't really have your ears tuned to good sound selection on what needs to be laid out, right? So that kind of messed me up when I was making this joint. That's why it took so long, bro. That's exactly why. So all in all, it sounds like I'm not gonna give this too harsh of a rating. I'm probably gonna give it a good rating, right? Overall, the mix was alright. Production wasn't too bad. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't too bad. I didn't like the sample, but the actual drums was hard. I messed with the drums. The drums was hitting, right? So I'm gonna give it a good rating, right? Should this go to Gunna's A&R or engineer? I'm gonna have to say nah, bruh. I'm gonna have to say nah. I got more work to do. I do. So yeah, it's a hell no for me, bruh. It's a nah. But it's mainly because of the sample and the production decisions that I made in the sample, which I go further in depth with in the first video in this whole little series where I was discussing if this could go out to Gunna or not. I talk about that in the previous video, so check that out if you haven't seen it, if you want the rating of the sample. Oh, I forgot to mention in the last video, I mentioned more plugin sauce, more VST sauce in that video. So if anything, look to see what the heck did I even use to make the sample, right? But all in all, it's a no. I still got more work to do, but I'm gonna stay locked in. I'm gonna stay getting better, man. And I hope y'all do too, bro. So that's pretty much it. I don't like how I do outros, bro. I swear I don't. I don't like the outros, man. Whatever, bro. I'm done, bro.